Live from London, this is BBC News. Hundreds of thousands are without power in Jamaica after Hurricane Melissa hits the island. We're tracking the hurricane live as it re-strengthens and now heads towards Cuba. President Trump delivers a keynote speech at the APEC summit in South Korea.
Economic security is national security. Those are the words from President Trump to business leaders here in Gyeongju, South Korea. I'm Steve Lai with the details.
Israel strikes Gaza again in response to what it calls violations of the ceasefire deal with Hamas. And in business today, when is chocolate not chocolate? We look at how shrinkflation is changing some of our favourite sweet treats. Hello and a very warm welcome to the programme. I'm Sally Bundock. Hurricane Melissa strengthens as it's heading towards Cuba after wreaking havoc in Jamaica as the strongest storm the island has ever experienced. So these are the latest satellite imagery which shows the storm's path. Melissa made landfall on Tuesday, bringing winds of almost 300 kilometres per hour. Still to come. The British government is cracking down on illegal workers. The Home Secretary says operations like this have resulted in more than 1,000 people being removed from the UK. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. Now let's bring you the latest on what's happening in the Middle East. Israel has carried out airstrikes on Gaza in response to what it says are violations of the US-brokered ceasefire deal. In anticipation of that meeting tomorrow, we'll be unpacking all of this in Business Today in just a few minutes here on BBC News. Stay with us as we keep you across events around the world as they happen. Stay with us here on BBC News. I'll be back in a moment with the top business stories and more on President Trump's trip to South Korea.
Now on BBC News, the latest business news from across the globe. Business Today.
Heading for profit, OpenAI completes its transformation into a commercial entity, propelling Microsoft into the $4 trillion club. Flying blind, the Fed is set to make its latest US interest rate call as the government shutdown cuts off key data. President Trump is in South Korea for the APEC forum with huge anticipation about his meeting with China's President Xi on Thursday. And when is chocolate not chocolate? We're going to look at how shrinkflation is changing some of our favourite sweet treats. Live from London, you're with Business Today. I'm Sally Bundock. So we start in the US, where markets have hit fresh record highs on the latest big tech deals. And in the world of artificial intelligence, it doesn't come any bigger than OpenAI. The maker of ChatGPT, arguably the interface that kicked off the whole AI revolution, has completed its conversion to a for-profit entity. No stopping the Nikkei 225 at the moment. Let's bring you some other business stories. Shares in Nokia jumped over 20% after the chip giant Nvidia announced it plans to invest $1 billion in the Finnish telecoms group. Nvidia will take a 2.9% stake in Nokia in return for its investment, which is seen as a strong endorsement of its strategy to expand into artificial intelligence. Nokia says the company will collaborate on AI networking solutions and data center communication products. Chancellor Rachel Reeves has vowed to defy gloomy forecasts for the UK economy after it emerged the government is facing a bigger than expected hole in the public finances. The BBC understands the official forecaster is set to downgrade the UK's productivity performance, which could leave a £20 billion gap in her meeting her tax and spending rules. Rachel Reeves said she was determined that we don't simply accept the forecasts, but we defy them. Chocolate or chocolate flavoured? We take a look at the impact of soaring cocoa prices are having on some of the UK's favourite sweet treats. Around the world and across the UK, you're with BBC News. You're with Business Today. I'm Sally Bundock. Now, here in the UK, the government's expected to publish its new climate action plan today. The plan has had a rocky start after two of its initial attempts were ruled unlawful by the High Court. Most of the attention is on tomorrow's meeting with President Xi Jinping, China's president. The expectations are that the framework for a deal between the US and China on tariffs, that's all been done, that's all been agreed. It's a question of signing it off. Also, potentially, the US business of TikTok as well. That's the latest from Business Today. Enjoy your day. I will see you soon.
The BBC was always on in the Mashiri house, and my dream actually was to be a BBC News presenter. I want to be for others what the BBC was for us, a trusted source of stability and hope. For me, trust is about presence, about fostering relationships all around the world over years. So when a story breaks, we're not chasing a lead, we're already there. I'm Marianne Mashiri on The World Today for BBC News.
Live from London, this is BBC News. Hurricane Melissa heads towards Cuba after wreaking havoc in Jamaica. The strongest storm to ever hit the Caribbean nation in modern history. We'll take you there live in a moment. Breaking news, a migrant sex offender who was mistakenly released from prison, sparking a manhunt across London, has now been deported to Ethiopia. President Trump says a trade deal with South Korea will be finalised very soon as he delivers a keynote speech at the APEC summit in South Korea. And Israel strikes Gaza again in response to what it calls violations of the ceasefire deal with Hamas. And coming up, 1 year since the flash floods in Valencia that killed over 200 people, we revisit the community that is recovering from the disaster. Hello and a very warm welcome to the programme. I'm Sally Bundock. Hurricane Melissa strengthens as it heads towards Cuba after wreaking havoc in Jamaica as the strongest storm the island has ever seen. So these are the latest satellite images that we're receiving that shows the path of the storm. Melissa made landfall on Tuesday, bringing winds of almost 300 kilometres an hour to Jamaica. It certainly will, and will be all over it for you here on BBC News. That was Steve Lai and my colleague Jake Kwan as well. Still to come. 1 year since the flash floods in Valencia that killed over 200 people, we revisit the community that is recovering from the disaster. Around the world and across the UK, you're with BBC News. Now let's bring you up to date on what's going on in the Middle East. Israel has carried out airstrikes on Gaza in response to what it says are violations of the US brokered ceasefire deal. Now, something we did want to bring to you in this programme was the marking of 1 year since the catastrophic flash flooding in Valencia. 237 people were killed at the time. We'll have more on that later here on BBC News for you. Our correspondent Guy Hedgecoe is there and we'll be talking to him later in the day. But let's now bring you live pictures coming in from the Netherlands, where the polls have opened. Almost an hour now the polls have opened. This is a snap general election that is underway. Migration, a worsening housing crisis, cost of living is fueling an intense debate there. Now time for the weather.
Now on BBC News, the latest business news from across the globe. Business Today.
Touchdown in South Korea. Donald Trump meets with his South Korean counterpart ahead of huge anticipation about the meeting with China's President Xi on Thursday. Heading for profit, OpenAI completes its transformation into a commercial entity, propelling Microsoft into the $4 trillion club. Flying blind, the Fed is set to make its latest US interest rate call as the government shutdown cuts off key data. And when is chocolate not chocolate? We look at how shrinkflation is changing some of our favourite sweet treats. Welcome. If you've just joined us, you're in the nick of time for the top business stories with me, Sally Bundock. So let's get started with US President Donald Trump, who is in South Korea. This is the third leg of his Asia tour, where a short while ago he met with South Korean counterpart Lee Jae-myung and is due to meet China's President Xi on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. That is tomorrow, that in-person meeting. We certainly are. That is definitely the case. Jeremy Stretch there from CIBC Capital Markets. Still to come. Chocolate or chocolate flavoured? We take a look at the impact soaring cocoa prices are having on some of the UK's favourite sweet treats. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. You're with Business Today. I'm Sally Bundock. Now, here in the UK, the government is expected to publish its new climate action plan today. The plan has had a rocky start after two of its initial attempts were ruled unlawful by the High Court. The document has to outline how the UK is going to meet its legally binding climate targets by 2037, which includes cutting emissions. Richard Keynes there from the UK Food and Drink Research, principal analyst with them. So many of you have been in touch about this, actually, quite interestingly, because many of you have been very suspicious about shrinkflation and what is going in various products. Do tell us what you think. Now, don't forget, you can get the latest business and economics news not only on Business Today, but throughout the day online. Just follow the business section of the BBC News website or app. A very good morning to you. If you have just joined us, you're with BBC News. It's just gone 10 to 7. Let's take a look at some of the stories making headlines around the world. And I'm sure you're not surprised at all to hear that Hurricane Melissa is dominating. So this is the front page of the Jamaica Observer website, which quotes a minister as saying that the St. Elizabeth area is underwater and that nearly 15,000 Jamaicans are still in shelters. The Eye has a dramatic image of the eye of the hurricane, calling it the storm of the century, pointing out that it was bigger than Hurricane Katrina. The Miracle's Melissa Hell at 185 miles per hour, reporting Jamaica has been battered and that British holidaymakers had joined the thousands taking shelter. Now, let's move on to The Guardian. It's got an exclusive on its front page this morning. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has written an article in the paper ahead of her budget next month, and its headline, Reeves vows to defy gloom after £20 billion budget blow. The Chancellor tells the paper the decisions she has to make don't come for free, and they are not easy. The budget's also top story for the Daily Express this morning, with a plea for OAPs to be given a fair deal from TV presenter Sue Cook. But it also has an exclusive with former Prime Minister Liz Truss. She's issued a warning for the Conservative Party, saying it must axe the Blairite agenda or face oblivion. Now let's take a look at the Korean Times. Of course, it will have a picture of President Trump. This is him waving from the door of Air Force One as he touched down earlier in the country for what it called his highly anticipated summit with President Lee. The Korean Herald describes it as a high-stakes meeting on Mr. Trump's first visit there for 6 years. It has the same picture of him waving. President Trump is also on the front page of the Times of Israel website today. It reports his comments saying nothing will jeopardize the Gaza ceasefire and that Israel should hit back if troops are killed. The paper says Hamas has told mediators that it hasn't violated the truce, and US Vice President J.D. Vance argues it is still holding. And this is the Daily Mail front page today, dominated by the story of Tuesday's triple stabbing in Uxbridge. It reports a dog walker named locally as Wayne Broadhurst died at the scene. Police have arrested an Afghan national. The Mail quotes officers describing the incident as a shocking and senseless act of violence. And finally, before we take you around the world, we've got a number of the papers, including this one, The Times, with pictures of Prunella Scales on their front page. The actress best known for playing Sybil Fawlty alongside John Cleese in 40 Towers, died at the age of 93. The Times pictures her alongside her late husband, Timothy West, saying her real-life marriage was far happier. So those are some of the stories making headlines around the world this morning. Don't forget, you can get a full paper review every day when you wake up. You just need to take a look at the BBC News website or the app. Just follow the papers. Something I do every morning, I have to say, on my way to the BBC newsroom. It's very important. So let's now turn our attention to what's going on right now around the world. These are live pictures we're receiving into our newsroom. To begin with, from Jamaica, where Hurricane Melissa has wreaked havoc. Of course, the nation has declared a disaster area, with much of it still without power. Some areas left underwater. These are pictures we're receiving of the capital, Kingston. The live tracker now shows you the path of Melissa. It has strengthened again. It's heading towards Cuba. It's now been re-upgraded to a Category 4 storm, with the US National Hurricane Center saying it will be extremely dangerous when it does make landfall. Now to Israel-Gaza border. As you were hearing there, President Trump has insisted that deadly Israeli strikes across Gaza will not put the ceasefire with Hamas at risk. And then this is a live feed we're receiving from South Korea, where President Trump is there, but there are protests going on. Not everyone is happy. They've got banners saying no Trump, no China. South Korea is hosting rival superpowers. You're live with BBC News. Now it's over to the weather.
Live from London, this is BBC News. I'm Martine Croxall. The Jamaican Prime Minister declares the island a disaster area after Hurricane Melissa wreaks havoc in the region. The National Hurricane Centre downgrades the storm as it heads to Cuba. We're tracking it and we'll have the latest live.
President Trump is in ongoing talks with South Korea's leader Lee Jae-myung here in Gyeongju, as both leaders seemingly rule out a meeting with North Korea's Kim Jong-un. I'm Steve Lai at the APEC summit with the latest.
And I'm Sally Bundock with the business. Donald Trump continues to trade financial blows with the US central bank, urging them to lower interest rates as the government shutdown begins to bite.
A migrant sex offender who was mistakenly released from prison, sparking a manhunt across London, has been deported to Ethiopia. At least 33 people are reported killed as Israel strikes Gaza again in response to what it calls violations of the ceasefire deal with Hamas. And coming up, a year since flash floods in Valencia killed over 200 people, BBC News revisits the community recovering from the disaster. Hello and welcome. Within the past few minutes, the National Hurricane Centre has downgraded Hurricane Melissa to a Category 3 storm as it heads towards Cuba. It's wreaked havoc in Jamaica. It was the strongest storm the island has ever seen. Still to come, 1 year since flash floods in Valencia killed more than 200 people, BBC News revisits the community recovering from the disaster. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. President Trump has given a keynote speech in South Korea to heads of state and business leaders at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum in the city of Gyeongju. Well, Sally B, it says here, but we know that means Bundock. You know you're famous when you get a surname that be just one letter, like a Spice Girl, isn't it? Anyway, Sally's going to be here with the business news shortly.
Mel C.
Yeah, indeed.
Sally B.
Yeah.
I don't mind that.
I like it.
I'll roll with that.
It shows you've arrived.
I'll roll with that.
What's in the business?
OK. We're focused on South Korea, of course, what President Trump has said already, his meeting with President Xi on Thursday, but also we're looking at the US Central Bank, the Federal Reserve. It meets today. It will decide later on interest rates. Huge amounts of pressure on Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, to cut rates aggressively again this time and boost the US economy. Of course, we shall see what the decision is. Most economists believe that they will cut rates by 0.25% this time. I'll be back with Business Today with more on that and the other business stories.
That's exactly what President Trump is pushing for, isn't it? Business Today, as you know, with Sally B, coming up in a few minutes. First, let's get a check on the weather with BBC Weather.
Now on BBC News, the latest business news from across the globe. Business Today.
Touchdown in South Korea. The red carpet's rolled out for Donald Trump as he arrives for the APEC summit with huge anticipation about his meeting with China's President Xi on Thursday. Heading for profit, OpenAI completes its transformation into a commercial entity, propelling Microsoft into the $4 trillion club. Flying blind, the Fed is set to make its latest US interest rate call as the government shutdown cuts off key data. And when is chocolate not chocolate? Where we look at how shrinkflation is changing some of our favourite sweet treats. Welcome. If you've just joined us, this is Business Today in London. I'm Sally Bundock. We're going to talk you through all you need to know in the world of business and finance. And we're starting with US President Donald Trump, who, as you have been hearing, he is now in South Korea. This is the third leg of his Asia tour, where a short while ago he was met with his South Korean counterpart, Lee Jae-myung. Tomorrow he is due to meet with China's President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the APEC summit. Jeremy Stretch there, live from London. This is Business Today, still to come. Good weather and a cyber attack boosts the sales at the retailer Next. We'll talk you through their latest numbers that have just come out. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. You're with BBC News. We're bringing you the very latest on Hurricane Melissa. It has now hit Cuba with winds of 120 miles per hour. This is after it crossed Jamaica. It's the strongest storm to hit Jamaica in modern history. And the movement of the hurricane, of course, is slower. Richard Keynes there explaining the shrinkflation, chocolate, no chocolate debate, which I have to say, I'm a chocoholic. It's a real big, that's a big deal for me. Now, let's bring you your attention to another story that is making headlines, and it's on our website. Ben & Jerry's co-founder is saying Unilever has blocked Palestine-themed ice cream. So you can read the detail on this story here. It's looking at Ben Cohen announcing that he will independently create the new flavour as part of a personal series highlighting causes the company has been barred from addressing publicly. So a really interesting story there on our website. Do take a look. And don't forget, you can get the latest business and economics news not only on this programme, but as we just illustrated to you there, online. The business section is jam-packed with all sorts of great stories and features and interviews. The BBC News website or app. Do take a look. Now we're back in about 40 minutes, I'm told, with more business. This is the brave new world we're in. But now it's back to Martine, as you can see, who has got some sport.
Yes, I know. I'm channeling my inner Jane
Good luck with
Dougal.
those names.
Yes, I know. I've been practicing outside. I've had a lot of help. Thank you very much. Good morning. If you've just joined us, it's 9 minutes to 8, I reckon, in the UK. Time for us to check on the sport. We start with football and a new look England as the Lionesses bounce back from their weekend defeat against Brazil with victory against Australia in their latest friendly of their homecoming tour. Well, those are the main sports stories this morning. Just about staggered through those pronunciations, I hope. Don't forget, you can get the latest throughout the day on the BBC Sport website and the app, including the news that New Zealand's cricketers have coasted to a one-day international series win over England. Headlines from me at 8 o'clock. First, let's check on the BBC weather. Live from London, this is BBC News. I'm Martine Croxall. Hurricane Melissa hits Cuba after being downgraded to a Category 3 storm. The Jamaican Prime Minister declares the island a disaster area after the hurricane wreaked havoc in the region. We'll track it live. A trade deal between the US and South Korea could be finalised very soon as President Trump delivers a keynote speech at the APEC summit.
And I'm Sally Bundock. Coming up in Business Today, Donald Trump continues to trade financial blows with the US Central Bank, urging them to cut interest rates as the government shutdown begins to bite.
At least 50 people are reported killed as Israel strikes Gaza again in response to what it calls violations of the ceasefire deal with Hamas. And coming up, the illegal teeth whitening industry exposed by a BBC investigation. Hello and welcome. Hurricane Melissa has made landfall in Cuba as a Category 3 storm after its slow, destructive path across the Caribbean. It's wreaked havoc in Jamaica. It was the strongest storm the island has ever seen. Nick, we appreciate you talking to us. Thank you very much. Nick Davis there from the Jamaican capital, Kingston. Still to come. A BBC investigation finds some salons in the UK are selling teeth whitening products that contain over 500 times the legal limit of bleaching agent. We have a special report. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. President Trump has insisted that deadly Israeli strikes across Gaza will not put the ceasefire with Hamas at risk. He said nothing would jeopardise the truce. These pictures appear to show Gaza's skyline during those strikes. Officials in Gaza say at least 50 people were killed and dozens more wounded. The attacks hit homes, schools and residential blocks. Hamas has postponed the handover of the body of another dead hostage after Israel ordered the strikes. Well, speaking on board Air Force One a little earlier, Mr. Trump said all parties, including Hamas, remain committed to the agreement. Still to come on BBC News, the illegal teeth whitening industry that's been exposed by a BBC investigation. Before that, let's get a check on the BBC weather. BBC News, the headlines. Hurricane Melissa hits Cuba after being downgraded to a Category 3 storm. A trade deal between the US and South Korea could be finalised very soon as President Trump delivers a keynote speech at the APEC summit. And cracking down on illegal workers, the Home Secretary says more than 1,000 of them have been removed from the UK. Coming up, the illegal teeth whitening industry exposed by a BBC investigation. Time for a bit more business news now, and Sally's here with the top stories, starting with what's happening in South Korea.
Absolutely. We are keeping a very close eye on President Trump's tour of Asia. This is the third leg, really, and as you've been hearing, he's now in South Korea, where earlier he met with his South Korean counterpart, Lee Jae-myung. And there's more business on our website and the BBC News app.
And I'll be back with you tomorrow.
Indeed.
It's
See you then.
very nice.
Same time, same place.
It's been very pleasant, Sally. Thank you. Hurricane Melissa has made landfall in Cuba as a Category 3 storm after its slow, destructive path across the Caribbean. It's wreaked havoc in Jamaica. It was the strongest storm the island has ever seen. More quotable quotes, no doubt, coming our way from that. Let's take you back to what's happening with Hurricane Melissa, which has now been downgraded to a Category 3 storm and has made landfall in Cuba, hitting the island with 120-mile-an-hour winds, which bizarrely, unbelievably really, is considerably slower than they were when they lashed Jamaica. This is the satellite imagery that's tracking the storm now. We're yet to see the true extent of the damage, though, in Jamaica. That will become apparent when day breaks. At the moment, it's about 4 o'clock in the morning, but the area has been declared a disaster area by the Prime Minister. More on that in the hours ahead here on BBC News. That's all from me. Mark Lowen is with you next.
Hello there. We're going to see quite a contrast in weather conditions across different